presentation I'm going to give you is on the Philippine Scouts. And I did a lot of research and a lot of myths that I believed in too. I found out were myths. And it's going to be some information on the equipment and the history. I want you to think back to Yorktown. Imagine if at Yorktown, you're George Washington, and Rochambeau comes up to you and goes, Cornwallis has agreed to surrender to me. And the French king has determined that you guys need some civilization. So after we accept the British surrender, and we want to make sure that the Dutch and the Spanish don't come and take over these colonies, we're going to hang around. And if you got a problem with that, we're going to hire Robert Rogers and the Queen's Own Rangers to track down you and John Hancock. Okay? Because in effect, that's what's going to happen. Now, Dewey, after he defeated the Spanish fleet at Manila, he contacts the president and says, these people seem ready for self-government. There's no problem. But other people have different ideas. And they decide that America needs to become an imperial power, and we need a colony. And the Philippines are going to be great. Now, back in America, there's going to be some people who are going to get very upset about this. They're going, time out. We're the United States. We were colonies of somebody on the other side of the ocean. We felt that was wrong. Now, we want a colony on the other side of the other ocean because we think we're better than them. Okay? And we will lead them to civilization. Now, one of the stories was that President McKinley told some people that Jesus came to him in a dream and told him that it was important that we Christianize the Philippines. Well, I don't know he was drinking because in all of Asia, there were only two countries that were predominantly Christian. One was the island of Goa, which was a Portuguese colony off the coast of India, and the other was the Philippines. Okay? Now, that story's been around for a long time. It was a Protestant minister who had gone to the White House with some others and said, you got to hang on to this because we Protestant missionaries, the Catholics won't let us in. But if you take over the Philippines, we can bring these people away from those papists and bring them to God, you know? Now, he tells that story like 4 years after McKinley is dead. So McKinley can't go back and go, I didn't say that. And the story gets repeated and repeated, and it's gone into legend that was the determination of why we were going to hang on to the Philippines. The other is William Howard Taft, who becomes President of the United States later on, becomes the Governor General of the Philippines. And he is the one who created the expression, Little Brown Brothers. That was his term for the Filipinos. They are our little brown brothers. Now, this was not scorn or, put them down. It was paternalistic racism, okay? He's decided they need American help. And Rudyard Kipling writes a whole poem about America getting involved in the Philippines. It's called The White Man's Burden. He didn't write that about the British in India. He wrote that about the Americans taking over the Philippines. Now, the soldiers who were sent to the Philippines had volunteered to free Cuba from colonial rule. So they're not happy that they're being used to establish colonial rule in the Philippines for the benefit of the United States. So they want to go home. So they're going to create a special unit called the United States Volunteers, as distinguished from the Tennessee Volunteers, or any state volunteers. They are going to be the ones that are going to civilize them with the crag and then send us home. Okay? And he may be a brother of Taft's, but he's not a brother of mine. Okay? They had their own little songs. Okay? Now, Teddy Roosevelt wants this thing wrapped up. Now, we're all familiar with George Bush and mission accomplished, right? And we've been there another 8 years. Same thing's going to occur in the Philippines. They're going to capture Aguinaldo, who's the George Washington, John Hancock of the Philippines. He's going to agree to submit to American rule. Roosevelt declares the insurrection is over. And then they fight for another 12 years. Okay? Yeah. And they start sending the regular army over, including black soldiers. And when the black soldiers arrive in Manila, there's always some asshole in the military yells at, "What are you niggers doing here?" yells back, we're here to pick up the white man's burden. Okay? So they show up, but they're trying to find a way, we have no experience of how to run a colony. So one of the things you're going to look at is, how do we get the Filipinos to fight the Filipinos? Everybody else is doing the same thing. In India, you get the Sikhs to fight the Punjabis to fight, So they're going to look around the Philippines and create two parallel organizations. One is going to be the Philippine Constabulary, okay, which I'm not going to really get into. They're modeled on the Texas Rangers. Honest to God. They're modeled on the Texas Rangers. And they're going to be the police force for the Philippines. But at the same time, they want to create an army unit, and that's going to be the Philippine Scouts. An important thing to remember as I go through all this, and the equipment and so forth, Philippine Scouts are part of the United States Army. They are not a foreign legion. They are part of the United States Army. At first, they're going to be equipped with the trapdoor carbine. And we have pictures of them standing there with their trapdoor carbines. Now, the trapdoor carbine, besides Custer, is unfortunate fellows. During the Spanish-American War, these were issued to volunteer troops in charge at the signal corps level. The guys who handled the balloons and strung the wires for the telegraph were equipped with trapdoors, carbines. Whether they used it in combat, we don't know. So the last unit of the U.S. Army that uses trapdoor carbines in combat is going to be the Philippine Scouts. This is going to be their initial weapon. Because like any other colonial power, you don't know who to trust, you give them your old guns in case they turn on you. So the Philippine Scouts are going to start out with this. The officers are all going to be white officers. Most of them are going to be former NCOs who are going to take a test. And they're going to be equipped with the famous Colt gun that doesn't kill people. Alright? The Colt New Army Navy. 38 Colt. Okay? They're going to carry these, and in the beginning, it's going to work. Now, at one part of the Philippines are the Moros. They're followers of Islam. They don't like being ruled by Spanish Christians, Filipino Christians, or American Christians. They still don't. Okay? And they're going to at first be neutral between the war between Spain and the United States. They really don't care who's going to win. When the Americans hang around, they start to get a little upset because these are foreign Christians coming into our country and telling us what to do. As the Filipino Constabulary is used against them, the Constabulary starts finding out that 30-40 Krag ammo and 38 Colt ammo is not too effective when you go up against an opponent who is full of religious zeal, possibly narcotics, and just plain has guts. They're not being stopped. So some of the Constabulary whip out their old Colts. Okay? And this gun here, particular gun, was made in 1888. Civilian modification to grips, 5.5-inch barrel. They find that this works pretty good. Now the Constabulary is going to turn around and go, we don't want 38s. Now they're not part of the Army, so they contract through the Ordnance Department to go to Colt, and they buy what's called the Philippine model, which I was hoping to find if nobody in the club has one. It's got a real large trigger guard. Sometimes people call them the Alaskan model. They have a long trigger guard because it's got a long trigger because it takes a lot of pressure against the mainspring. They also found that for a Filipino, you could grip it and put 2 fingers in the trigger guard and fire the gun. And they develop holsters that are cut away. They're not going to use Army holsters. Now, what about the Army? The Army is still sticking with the 38s, bringing out some old 45s. But they're working on developing a new gun. Now, when I was in the Army in the 60s, all our dining halls were decorated with the Army in action pictures. And one of them shows a guy wearing a Smokey Bear, 2 guys behind him with Springfield, the guy's pointing his 45 automatic, and all these visually Moros with their Chris's and everything else all over the place. And it has on it, cartridge, the gun was developed because of the fierce Moros in the Philippines, blah, 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 blah. And they show you a scene from a battle that I unfortunately have written down on a piece of paper that I can't find. But it's the last battle, 1913. It's fought in a crater. And we assume it's the .45 automatic. I found out it's not. What happened was, while they were working on the pistol, the Army was, we can't keep waiting for you guys to decide what's going to be our handgun. Can you get something to us sooner? We need it. And one of the underrated guns for collectors is this. This is the 1909 U.S. Army. Okay, 1 out of 12, 1 out of 12. Okay, now, this is nothing more than a Colt New Service. The government buys 18,500 of these for the Philippine Constabulary and the Army. Right from Colt to Springfield, right to Manila. They keep 350 of them back home. The rest are immediately sent to Manila, where they become the standard sidearm of the U.S. Army, the Philippine Scouts, and the Constabulary. All right, as I put it, it's an underrated collectible. If you find one in mint condition, it's probably part of the 300 that never left the States. If you find, and I've seen a lot of them, they are beat to hell. They're probably ones that have been there, done that. And then, of course, ones like this that after 100 years, the blue has started to fade. But this was this is the gun that stopped the Moros, not the 1911.
What caliber is that?
45 Colt. Okay? This is the gun that stopped the Moros. And the 1911 doesn't arrive in Moro land until 1944, when a submarine brings them to the Moros to use against the Japanese. Okay? But this is the gun. Okay? Now, you're creating a unit called the Philippine Scouts. They are part of the U.S. Army. And they prove their loyalty when the insurrection is over. They don't appear to ever go to cracks. They go right to the 03 Springfield in about 1919 because they're part of the U.S. Army. Now, in addition, if you were a Philippine Scout, 1 Scout a year could go to West Point. And they were starting to send them to West Point. But only one. Only going to have 1 a year. And then somebody in Congress realized that eventually, if you commission them a 2nd lieutenant, they'll become a 1st lieutenant, they'll become a captain, and they might give orders to white men. So they get really touchy about them, and a lot of them are going to end up in staff positions rather than command because of the racism of the time. Also, as members of the Army, they go to Camp Perry. And they start going to Camp Perry. And they compete. And they're often in the top half of competitors at Camp Perry. Which means they're out shooting, our little brown brothers are out shooting some of the good old white boys. So what happens? They're banned from Camp Perry and they're not allowed to show up anymore. Okay? Because you don't need race, color, creed, or gender to be an accurate shot. You need skill. But our little brown brothers shouldn't be shooting better than good old white boys. So they don't. Alright? Now, the 03 Springfield is the standard weapon. Now, as World War II approaches, okay, let me go back a little bit. 1934, Congress declares to the Philippines, we're leaving. July 4th, 1946, we're out of here. You are going to run your own country. We're tired of this colonial stuff. We're leaving, which is unusual. No other colonial power was giving people a magic date in the future saying, we'll be gone, you can rule yourself. Okay? The Portuguese aren't doing it, the English aren't doing it, the French aren't doing it, the Spanish aren't doing it. The United States is telling the Filipinos, we're leaving. And we're going to create an army for you. But what about the Philippine Scouts? No, we're keeping them. They belong to us. We're going to take the Constabulary, and that's going to be the backbone of your army. And by the way, I'll give you more information on this in November. We want to get rid of all those 1917 Enfields we got sitting in warehouses. We got to give them to somebody. So the Filipinos end up with 17 Enfields. The Scouts got the 03. Now, they're good with the 03. They're a modernized force. They're going to have cavalry. They're going to have vehicles, and I'm going to get into that. They're going to become the elite combat force of MacArthur in the Philippines. Because he's not going to be given first-rate American troops. The Philippines is almost considered expendable. Okay? They call War Plan Orange. And you'll probably enjoy this when I go through it. War Plan Orange. In case of a war with Japan, we will send B-17 bombers from Clark Air Force Base. They will bomb the Japanese Air Force at Formosa, also called Taiwan. When the Japanese Navy appears, our submarines will sink their transports. And then the American fleet will sail out from San Diego and in a classic battle of ship to ship in the open ocean, sink the Japanese fleet. If they land on the Philippines, we will abandon everything but Bataan and Corregidor. We will sit back with a 6-month supply in our own homemade Alamo and wait for the American fleet to sink the Japanese fleet, sail into Manila, reinforce us, we take back the Philippines, we have our victory parade. Okay? So that was the plan. Plan Orange, it was called. Alright? What went wrong with Plan Orange? Number one, the Japanese attack us at Pearl Harbor. The fleet's not in San Diego, it's at Pearl Harbor. Now it's sitting at the bottom of Pearl Harbor. Okay? Plan number one is no good. Number two, the Japanese were going to attack Clark Air Force Base the same time they were attacking Pearl Harbor. But fog set in Formosa, so their planes were grounded. So the Philippines knows there's a war on. They're not going to be surprised. They shouldn't be surprised like the people of Hawaii. What do? They send out reconnaissance aircraft. They fly over Formosa, they go, it's fogged in. They fly back, good, we'll get them on the ground. So what do? They line up the B-17s in Clark, they fill them with fuel, they fill them with bombs, and they stop for breakfast. Not knowing the fog has lifted and the Japs are on the way. So while they're having breakfast, the Japanese hit Clark Air Force Base while the B-17s are lined up, fully fueled, loaded with bombs, everything else. So that part of the plan is out the window. Alright, Japanese invasion fleet is coming. Send out our submarines. Sink their transports. Another problem. American torpedoes, when they hit a Japanese ship, go thud rather than boom. Okay? We had a real problem. Our torpedoes didn't work right at the beginning of the war. So that's not going to stop the Japanese. They're on their way. MacArthur then makes a decision to abandon Plan Orange. He does not want to he loves the Philippines. He is actually retired from the U.S., was a field marshal of the Philippine Army, was recalled to duty by Roosevelt before the war, and put in charge of U.S. Army forces Far East. He's in charge. And he does not want to give up Manila, he does not want to give up the Philippines. He's going to meet the Japanese on the beaches and stop them. Okay? The Philippine Army is not in great shape. The Commonwealth Army, it's draftees, equipped with 17 Enfields, not highly motivated, it's not working. The groups that are going to give them support are going to be Philippine Scouts, which are part of the U.S. Army. Okay? And they are equipped with the M1. Not Springfield. Some of the regular Army troops have O3 Springfields. The Marines have O3 Springfields. Philippine Scouts have M1 Grands. Because they're part of the experiment on how good the gun is. And MacArthur is going to use him as his elite fire brigade, his elite troops. So they get M1s. And they become the first unit to use M1s in combat. Now they're the last unit to use trapdoor carbines. They're the first people to use the M1 in combat. And the first 3 medals of honor that are given to ground troops in World War II go to Philippine Scouts. The other thing is the Philippine Scouts have a cavalry unit, 26. They become the last U.S. Army unit to lead a mounted cavalry charge. And they defeat a Japanese supply column. Okay? They go through, they shoot them up, they get back. After the war, Lieutenant Ramsey, who was the leader of that unit, was brought to New York by some equestrian society. And they had a big meal and dinner and everything else, and they're congratulating him, you know, they're all horse lovers. And they ask him, they go, was the cavalry important in the defense of Bataan? He goes, very, very important. And they go, how? He goes, we ate them. I don't think that's what they wanted to hear. Okay. when MacArthur sent the people out of Bataan to stop the Japanese, he sent his supplies forward. When he couldn't stop the Japanese, he couldn't get all his supplies back. So Plan Orange wasn't going to work. First of all, no one's coming to rescue him, contrary to what he was told. As they pull back, they don't bring back enough food and supplies, and they bring back more people. Okay? Now, during the fighting, the Scouts, I said, are going to be the first ones to use the M1 Grand. They're organized like a regular Army unit, which in those days, 1941, was a 12-man squad. 10 of them would have Springfields, 2 would have BARs, or 11 would have M1 Grands, and 1 would have a BAR. Alright? They had hand grenades. Now, here's my extra here. They had lots and lots of World War I leftover Mark II grenades. That's a black body. And they soon found out that 20 years of storage in tropical heat, like the torpedoes, they don't work. And they had to scrounge around and find as many of the later make ones, the yellow, what we call the yellow ones, as they could, because they were throwing these at the Japanese and they were just laying there in the mud, okay? They definitely had a problem. Now, they had the BAR. They also had a few 1928 Thompson submachine guns. Very, very few. They were at the company level, to be issued out as needed. Now, if you see the movies, all right, that's when I first heard about the Philippine Scouts, a movie called Bataan. A guy named Javier, I think, was the actor. He gets to play Yankee Salazar, Philippine Scout and former boxer. Hollywood wants the movie to be dramatic. Having a bunch of guys defending a bridge against the Japanese. It's not dramatic. So what do? They go into the prop room, grab all the 1921 Thompsons from the gangster movies, give them 50-round drums, and issue them to everybody in the platoon. So you can have dramatic action all through the movie. Very few Thompsons would have been in the hands of the Scouts. Equipment-wise, they had leftover World War I equipment, and you all know what a piece of crap some of that stuff is. The 1910 haversack, 1920, they call them sacks. They're a giant envelope. You fold things together. Garbage. I had my father's old manual from 1940. I remember as a kid trying to assemble that crap. I don't believe this. My Boy Scout yucca pack is better than this. Okay? Bayonets. They still had the Springfield bayonets from the First World War. The khaki scabbard, 1910 scabbard. Patch of the Philippine Scouts. Okay? It's called a Carabao, I think. I'm probably mispronouncing it. It's a native, it's a water buffalo, yeah, but it's native to the Philippines. And that was their symbol. The uniform I'm wearing is the Philippine section, the Philippine division. Only because I couldn't find crossed rifles with PS on it. Philippine Scouts. American Rifleman, 1942, June issue. Shows a Bataan rifleman, supposed to be a scout. It's obviously a staged photo, and going on the internet I found out this was actually filmed in California by a Philippine American going through basic training. I don't know who it is, but yeah, speaking of which, movies. Anthony Quinn plays a Filipino. He played a Greek. He plays Mexicans, which is not bad because his mother is Mexican, his father is Irish. But he plays a Filipino in Back to Bataan. But Hollywood, made 2 movies, Bataan and Back to Bataan. Now, prior to that, the only movie about the Philippines is The Real Glory, I think it's called. Gary Cooper and Roger Crawford, and that deals more with the Philippine Constabulary. And that movie is very popular among that's when he left, veterans of the Philippine insurrection. It glorifies their action, they loved it. Little extra war story, in 1990s, they have an organization called the Order of the Cavalry. Every year, a giant meeting called Apollo. And they meet in Washington, D.C. And in January of 91, There's the annual meeting, and the president always comes, the chief of staff always comes, the secretary of the army always comes, and they play the movie. They commemorate the guy, because they're all gone by now, you know, what they did. That year, the president didn't show, Owen Powell didn't show, secretary of the army didn't show, because they were launching Desert Storm. Okay. Smart intelligence service would have figured something out. Okay. Yes. It's supposed to deal really with a constabulary unit, a doctor who saves the village. Those of you who are real big movie fans, yeah, the guy who plays the Moro chieftain, he also plays the village chief in Magnificent Seven.
Not the village chief, the old man.
The old man, yeah. He plays the... Yeah, Hollywood gets you all kind of neat...
Where's the oldest man in the village?
All right, the Philippine Scouts, what happened? Bataan Falls. They take part in the Bataan Death March, yes. A lot of them died. Okay? They're put into prisoner of war camps. What starts to happen is the Japanese want to convince the Filipinos that they have come as liberators, not conquerors. So if a village mayor or a family goes, can you let such and such out of prison, they start releasing Filipinos and Philippine Scouts. They get paroled out of the POW camps. A good number of them joined the guerrilla movements, the resistance movements led by Lieutenant Colonels Volkman, Fennick, I'm trying to remember the other one, Blackburn, and they become active in the resistance movement. And when MacArthur does return to the Philippines, a lot of scouts show up and go, reporting for duty, sir. And they start rebuilding the Philippine division. It comes from the 12th division for duty in Okinawa and occupation of Japan. But they're not going to be needed. And when the war ends, we have a weird situation. You know, Truman goes, we have a division of citizens of another country. You know, we don't have a foreign legion. So what happens to the Philippine Scouts? They're going to be dissolved. But anybody who was a pre-war scout is offered American citizenship and a career in the Army. You'll be in our Army, but there won't be a Philippine unit anymore. And you are citizens of the United States. Or you can go to the Philippines and help build their Army. You know, there'll be opportunities for you there. So the Philippine Scouts, as we got here, established 1901, disbanded 1948. Chris put this together. A lot of good information there. I've got some clippings on the Philippine Scouts. So they're part of history. The Philippine insurrection, or the American-Filipino War, before Korea was called the Forgotten War. Now Korea is the Forgotten War. But it's a bit of history that most people are not familiar with, or the contribution of Filipinos to the defense of the Philippines and part of the United States, which it was. Do I have any questions? I'll try to answer them. This was not designed to be a long presentation. I was going to do the intro and Chris was going to follow up, but he's not here today. All right, any questions, guys? Yeah. They would have preferred it. They preferred, Cavite Bay, isn't it? We're getting there. A safe haven. Right. The other thing was the Philippines were the world's biggest producer of sisal. Now, Manila rope. Yeah, Manila rope. That's why it's called Manila rope. Yeah, but back in America, just so you know, Mark Twain, William Jennings Bryan were very active in the Anti-Imperialist League. And they were going, what are we doing? And if we do take the Philippines, does the Constitution follow the flag? If we take over the Philippines, do they get all the benefits of American citizenship? And does the Constitution follow the flag? Okay? And America had nothing they could look back on really and say, it's a colony. And he referred to the Spanish-American War as this splendid little war that got us all across the way. We lost more soldiers, 4,000, in the Philippines than we lost in the Cuban campaign. And we estimate 250,000 Filipinos died while the United States was taking over. Now that last battle against the Sultan, whatever his name was, in the crater, that is almost like Waco. It's these religious fanatics won't give up their guns, so we got to go attack them, and we kill their women and children. Yeah, get their krisses, get their wavy knives, because the Moros weren't going to give up their guns. They're like, we can live peacefully. We ain't giving up our guns. And General Pershing, you remember him? He's the one that sends the Philippine Scouts and the regular army into Moro land, and they fight the Battle of the I had it written down, and I can't find it now, but they attacked this crater, which was like the stronghold of this Sultan and his people. And they defeat him, and he then agrees, okay, you got me. Now, Aguinaldo, he gets captured, he says, you Americans win, that's it. He runs for president of the Philippines in 1936 and gets creamed. He thinks he's going to get elected, well, he doesn't. When the Japanese come, he tells the Filipinos, just like when the Americans beat us, the Japanese beat us, got to learn to live with them. So after the war, he's arrested as a collaborator, but they forgive him. July 4th, 1946, the United States leaves. Now, the Philippines, we wanted them to call it Independence Day. They call it Republic Day. They have their own Independence Day when Aguinaldo declared independence from Spain, and but they still theoretically celebrate the 4th of July. Not the way we do. It's not Independence Day for them. Any other weird information that you might need in case you're involved me on Jeopardy? Yeah. It's a myth. Yeah, it was the old that Pershing put them to end by sewing up their bodies in pig skins, and it's also a plot in the movie, The Real Glory.
There's an old story. They went to the village and they told everybody but two.
Yeah.
Third put them in a hole with pigs, and they told them two would survive. Why they told the rest of the villagers, crap on it. We're going to do this together. It's all over the
The one true story that's bad is the Philippine insurrection, now called the Philippine-American War, except for the Army. The Army still calls it the Philippine insurrection, was use of the water cure when we captured Filipinos. We now call it waterboarding. That's where it started. The first time we used that torture technique was in the Philippines, and it was called the water cure. And I think they learned it from the Spanish, but I'm not sure. Yeah. You had a question? Huh?
Is that the name of the battle?
I'm not sure, because I thought it began with a C or something. It was in 1913. Maybe it is. I wrote it down somewhere, and of course I can't find the paper with it. It's on an index card full of things.
The other interesting thing you got is we're wearing an active field uniform in the United States Army. That's a carryover from the Scouts. I was saying, this is the last battle.
I have pictures of my father wearing khakis, and he was in 1941. He was in Panama Canal Zone. This was a summer tropical uniform. It was the khaki uniform, which started, except the Spanish-American War. There's a movie that I can't get my hands on called Amigo that was made with the Philippines. The Philippines made their own movie about the Philippine-American War. It's called Amigo, because Americans were taught, when you go into a village, you want to know whether they're good amigos or bad amigos. Okay? Are they good Filipinos or are they bad Filipinos? The other thing was the Philippines did not necessarily have a concept of nationalism. Okay, there were many different groups, and we took advantage of that. There was a village called McKinley, I think it is, McKinley, and they used to work for the Spanish. And when we came, they said, we can work for you. And they're the ones that helped us capture Aguinaldo. Okay, so within Philippine history, they're the equivalent of Rogers Rangers and the Queen's Rangers, those of you who watch Term. paid than most jobs in the Philippines. The United States had pick of the litter. That's really what it came out to when they created the Philippine Scouts. And it caused some animosity because when they created the Philippine Army, it evolved from the Constabulary. And I think the Scouts sort of looked down on the Constabulary, you know. We're first class, you're second class, you know, that kind of stuff. But after the war, a lot of Philippine Scouts took positions within the Philippine Army. Because now the Philippines were there, you know, it's a separate nation. So those of you who are real big history buffs, the United States was the only country that ended up being, the only imperial power that ended up being smaller after World War II. Everybody else hung on to their colonies wherever they could, and we were giving ours up. But we had promised that in 1934, so we kept our word and left. Which messed up the Japanese who were trying to, we're here to liberate you and join the co-prosperity sphere. You know, and when are you going to leave? Oh, we don't know yet. You know? The Americans are leaving July 4th, 1946. They have an expiration date, you know. You don't. Alright? I'm trying to think of anything else. Movies, back to, okay, Bataan. Oh yeah, movie Bataan. You ever watching late night TV? Bataan.
Great movie.
Great movie. Robert Taylor. Desi Arnaz plays a Mexican, even though he's a Cuban. There's a guy who plays a Polak. There's a black guy. There's a guy, a Murphy, an actor named Murphy. He plays a Jewish guy, like Feingold or something. I mean, it's the all-American platoon. Okay? Mexican, black, Irish, Polish, Jewish, you know, all Americans joined together, and the Filipino Scout. Okay, they're all there in the movie, fighting together, and then back to Bataan comes out a couple years later, and that's got an Anthony Quinn playing a Filipino. If you watch the movies, sometimes they edit them for TV. I already gave the information to Chris. He might throw it into the video of this. There is a line in Back to Bataan when they realize Bataan has fallen, and you know, John Wayne has a meeting with village chiefs, and he goes, "I want you to go back, and I want you to, you know, spy on the Japanese. Our job is to get information and everything else." They're going, "We don't have guns. We need guns." And he looks at one of them and he goes, "Where'd you get that gun?" "I killed the Jap." "Kill more Japs. Get more guns." That line is sometimes left out.
Well, you men can do the most good if you go back to your barrios and tell them that the war hasn't ended yet. But now the people must fight. We need men.
We have no arms.
Where did you get this?
Kill a Jap.
Kill more Japs and get more guns. When you have men and arms, send your leaders to me.
But it's in the, if you get the original movie, it's still there. Yes. Big time. Olmsted Manifesto. Oh, United States wanted Cuba back in 1850. I think it was called the Olmsted Manifesto. We were looking for, the southern states wanted Cuba to be one of our states because it was great slave territory. Okay? Seriously. They were looking at it as, you know, there's not much room to expand slavery. Cuba would be really, really nice. But the United States promised at the start of the Spanish-American War, this was not a war of conquest. We were not going to go grab colonies. We're here to liberate Cuba. So that was taken off the table. But Puerto Rico was a freebie, and so were the Philippines. And Guam. Well, an annex to Hawaii, yeah. That's Queen Liliuokalani and the rest. Sorry about that, you know. But, yeah.
Was it in the Philippines where the United States dropped off those single-shot 45 ACPs and had a sheet metal with a cartridge in the
The Liberator pistol, which I have. I have a Liberator, yeah. A Liberator pistol. Millions were made, very few were used, and many were destroyed. As a matter of fact, the government got tired of storing them. It cost more to store them than they were worth. So they were melted down. They only cost the government, I think it was $2.35 each. And they were designed for places like the Philippines, the theory being, if you drop these, okay, we were going to drop them in Burma and other places. The colonial powers weren't too happy. We don't want you giving guns to people we're going to push around after the war. Because the guns themselves were designed that they would basically rot away. But, you know, you use it to get a real gun, and then that gun rusts away, you know.
You have the gun that was used in the
division
I
made it.
thought it was a World War II.
Yeah, it is. We're saying it's a World War II gun. Yeah. Now, the Philippines created their own shotguns, which is the barrel of the pipe inside of a pipe, which were copied after the war, which we showed I think 2 years ago or something. But that's the Liberator pistols. There's a great book on it. They're called FP45 because they were, for purposes of disguise, they were called flare pistols. They weren't. They were a smoothbore 45. They were only expected to last maybe 30, 40 rounds. And it was an idea that was not really carried out. They ended up sitting in warehouses in Bombay and other places, and finally the government just said, what are we going to do with this? So they melted them down. So I have one, and they made copies of about 3-4 years ago. They came out with, you can buy a new one made. They have no serial numbers. They have no rifling. Oh yeah, I'm sure an anti-gunner would go nuts over those. The Philippines, real fast, if you go to a hospital in America and you see a Filipino nurse or a Filipino doctor, the reason is we establish medical schools as branches of American medical schools, so they meet American standards. So if you go to medical school in the Philippines, doctor or nurse, that's why we can hire you back in the United States. You're meeting our standards. And we also set up public schools and taught them English. So, you know, that was another advantage that, you know, if you're a Philippine person, coming to the United States is not a major cultural transition.
I read the report, a picture of Gary Tweed
That's the one.
shooting this native with that smile, wide grin on his face.
That's the real glory.
That's the real glory. That was for a while, and that was the only movie that is the only movie that dealt with the insurrection. Now this new movie that I call a new movie, from 2011 called Amigo. I haven't seen it. I've seen segments of it. It looks like a quality production. But where do you get it? You know, maybe you go to the Philippine American community, they show it on once a year or something. I don't know. No, I tried the internet. It's not available on the internet.
Yeah. You can get a copy of that from the University of Maryland. All the videos and films ever made in this country are stored by library files there at the library at the University of
The
Maryland.
movie was made with, I think it's Filipino and Americans together, filmed it in the Philippines. I don't know if it's considered a Philippine movie or an American movie. But what I understand, the movie is half English, half Tagalog, and they have subtitles.
Number two, there were a group of United States Navy men, 8 of them. They were led by George Green, E-R-E-E-D. I tried to tell Chris about this because I'm not too clear on the evidence. He was really originally from Nebraska. And these guys were running a radio and signal station somewhere, I'm going to say Virginia, for lack of a correct place. And they got evacuated by the Philippines. They were all running down through the attrition of who getting moved because the Japanese knew they were there. They just kept trying to look for them. They wound up in a leprechaun. And then they were moved again, and he was the last one left. So somebody like Amigo put him up on top of a mountain. And they couldn't get to him. He couldn't get down. So he had his children running food, and they gave him a chicken food. And guess what chickens do? They go, they wake up and they crow, and cackle and everything else. And the chicken and rooster almost gave him away. He was there for 19 months, and he saw the American Navy come. Now this is all true. And he made a lantern, you know, one of the flashing things, I don't know what it's called.
Single lantern, where's my man Joe?
Single lantern.
Single
out of
lantern they're using the
a
Navy.
tin can that was brass lined, and he used the can. and
Blinking
they-
light, yeah.
He signaled the ships that they were like 10 miles out, almost to the horizon, and they thought the guy was nuts on the ship. Keep it up. Now he wrote a beautiful book. Find it, but it's out there somewhere. But it's a marvelous story. Now they did make a movie of this, and Jeffrey Hunter, the new up-and-coming movie star, plays the lead of George Tweed. He does a very good job. About 7 months after the movie comes out, Jeffrey Hunter slips and falls at the top of the stairs in his house, breaks his neck, and comes tumbling all the way down. And it's his marriage and career.
Just a little extra thing on the Americans who hid out and became guerrillas. The Japanese insisted that General Wainwright issue a surrender order to all American troops in the Philippines. They said, you guys surrender all American troops in the Philippines. And the guys that didn't respond, the Japanese attitude is, you're war criminals. Same way we treated the werewolves after the fall of Nazi Germany. The war's over. You guys are supposed to come out of the woods and give up. So the Japanese attitude was, any of these guerrilla Philippine Scouts or Americans like Burdick, Blackburn, that were leading guerrilla armies, you're outside the Geneva Convention, we don't have to treat you decently. The reality is, Japan never signed the Geneva Convention. They don't like to bring that up. They never signed the 1929 Geneva Convention. And their argument is, how can you treat us as war criminals when we didn't join the club? Okay? And the American attitude was, since you obviously don't respect the Geneva Convention, you know, our people that are resisting don't have to follow it either, because they theoretically, when Wainwright surrendered American troops in Bataan and Corregidor, they guys were supposed to come out of the hills and go, okay, lock us up.
Yeah, but you don't have to follow that order. You know that.
That was a question they didn't want to deal with.
You don't have to follow the order. If commanding officer orders you to surrender, you do not have to follow that order.
At that time, it was not the, you're thinking of the code of conduct, which didn't come out until after the Korean War.
But still, you don't have to follow the order. Not that specific.
One more question, everybody, I'm sorry. I've been asked to do some research about the United States Navy, Secretary of the Navy, that kind of thing. Does anybody here who served in the Navy, and would you know what the warrant officer is? I haven't had time to look it up.
Warrant officer is between a chief petty officer and an officer.
Right, what do they do? You know? What's the chief?
They're not officers.
Non-commissioned, what do they tell you?
A warrant officer has special skills that are not expected to command.
Okay,
They go warrant officer 1, 2, and 3.
thank you.
A warrant officer is not expected to command, but he has special skills.
And the Army, they're pilots.
But they're not an NCO either.
They're not an
They're a
NCO.
separate category, WOs. No, they didn't sign the Geneva Convention in 1929. And they also left the League of Nations, yes. Well, they were thrown out of the League of Nations because of what they did in China. But their attitude was, yeah, we're not playing by your rules.
Two more movies. One was They Were Expendable.
They were expendable, yeah, let me take that back.
There's another one about the Air Force with John
Yes, the B-17 crew, right. I don't remember too, but that dealt with the plane flying all over the place. The guy who played the Philippine Scout in Bataan played it in Back to Bataan, and he also played that role in They Were Expendable, but he committed suicide in December of 1945. So his career, you know, he played Filipinos, and he was Filipino. Not like Desi Arnaz, who played a Mexican. Dude, Desi Arnaz, I think he married his girl Lucy. Any other questions or anything? Like I said, there were some movies made about the Philippines, but I said Bataan, Back to Bataan, They Were Expendable. There was a movie about the Air Force. That I'm not familiar with. I said, yeah, Amigo looks damn good, but they tell you it's half Tagalog with English subtitles, and the other half is English with Tagalog subtitles. It was made for the American Filipino market, but all I know is it came out in 2011, and I contacted Chris to see if he can find me a copy somewhere. But I'd like to see, from what I can see, the equipment, everything else, somebody would do a lot of research. Yes, totally. There's no connection to the United States. Yeah. Oh, okay. When the Japanese collected all the weapons, they found a lot of M1 Grands. And there's pictures of M1 Grands, and some of them are gas tapped. So they had some of the early M1s. But if it's an M1, chances are it's taken from Philippine Scouts. And there's Springfields and 17 Enfields and everything else that's piled up. They started issuing them to their own Philippine Constabulary. They created their own Philippine Constabulary, you know, which later after the war was considered a collaborationist constabulary. They did capture a lot of I think the soldiers and Marines on Corregidor, when the order came for them to surrender, started smashing their Springfield. I doubt they had souvenirs to take home, yes.
Do you think MacArthur should have got the Medal of Honor for Bataan? For
No.
the Philippines? Yeah, I agree with that.
Really, if you look at it, he messed up in the Philippines.
He should have
but-
been court-martialed, that's what he
Yeah,
should
but
have.
they wanted to, they wanted a hero, they wanted, so, they looked the other way. Number one, he shouldn't have been surprised. After MacArthur. Yeah, Pearl Harbor, okay guys, we're at war.
Yeah, what's going on?
Clark there was no major investigation of Clark Air Force Base because, hate to say it, the people who knew the answers were either captured or dead. While Pearl Harbor, they could, have major congressional hearings and bring in the guys and go, why did you do what you did, I really don't know. I mean, MacArthur left Wainwright in charge, and sorry, but the president said, "I need you. I got to pull you out of there." And when we started going back, MacArthur wanted to go back to the Philippines. I shall return. King and the others were saying, "Let's island hop them too. Let's skip right over the Philippines." And MacArthur said, "We owe it to the Filipinos. They were under American care, and we couldn't protect them. So we owe it to them to go back." Yeah, and the American POWs that were there. Part of the problem was when the Japanese captured the American soldiers, they thought they were going to capture physically fit, well-fed troops because Americans are famous for eating well. They were on half rations for a long time. They were in bad shape when they surrendered. They were walking skeletons then. All right, and the Japanese didn't bring supplies for them. Just marched them to 10 death marches. Huh? I don't really remember the numbers, but some survived, and the healthiest ones were then put on ships and sent to Japan to do work in uranium mines and other dangerous jobs. And the Japanese did not label their transports POW, so some of them were sunk by us. Some of our submarines sank ships carrying American POWs, but they weren't marked like they were. Well, under the Geneva Convention, you're supposed to mark POW camps and transport. Japanese didn't do it. Anything else anybody's doing? Don't you guys all priming for Jeopardy or what?
I don't want to introduce you. Dr.
Actually, I was looking for you, Art. I kind of figured it would be okay if I just video this stuff just for Chris. Obviously, not your, not you. You're good with that, right, Art? Yeah. Okay. If not, I'll stop.
Remember, what CD did you give me?
Is the flag by Mr. Green. Art's dad. That is priceless.
Hey everyone, Chris from the ASP, and today we're going to be looking at military accoutrements, belongings, and equipment of the Philippine Scouts during World War II. Now, as you can see, I'm a reenactor. I've been doing this for about 2 years, and continuing collecting